So a fisherman illegally introduces some fish into a lake and they quickly propagate. What does propagate mean? Reproduce, yes. The growth of the population of this new species within a period of a few years is modeled by P of x equals 5 times b to the x power, where x is the time in weeks. So x is in weeks following the introduction, and b is a positive unknown base. B is your base. All right, so I want you to try this independently on your own. Letter A says, how many fish did the fisherman release into the lake? You should be able to see that from your equation. And then letter B, if the lake contains 33 fish after 8 weeks, you need to find what is B. And then what is our growth factor and what is our growth rate? So independently, without talking to somebody else, I want you to figure out how many fish did the fisherman release into the lake. That should be given to you from that exponential equation. And then letter B, if the lake contains 33 fish after 8 weeks, find letter B. What is our growth factor and what is our growth rate? All right. I'm going to give you, and my watch is off again. I'm going to give you till 8:35, so about 10 minutes. Okay, about 10 minutes. How many fish did he release? Schneider, put the phone away. Try to focus on the lesson. And solve for B. And then what is our growth factor? What is our growth rate? Do you have any questions? So this one you can keep. Try to answer the questions. All right, our time is about up, but let's see if we can answer the first question. How many fish did the fisherman release into the lake? Raise your hand if you think you know. Is this a hand, Kimani? Do you know? Not sure. One person, two people. Okay. What did you get? And you said, why is it 5? Isn't that the initial amount? Yeah. So he put or released 5. That is your initial amount. And so that is what we started with. There weren't that kind of fish in the lake before he put them in. So 5 fish were released into the lake. Any question about that? Or not understanding that yet? Okay. So then letter B says, if the lake contains 33 fish after 8 weeks, find B. All right, so if this is my initial equation, I'm going to put it down here again. 5 times B to the X, what would you do with that information to try to find B? Yeah, Nyla. Can you say that a little bit loud? What would you do to get the answer? Okay, 33, because that's how many fish we have after this time period of 8 weeks, equals 5 times B to the 8th power, because it did say that X was our time in weeks. So does everybody understand that equation? All right, so then we have to try to solve for B. In solving for B, what would I do? Okay, first of all, you want to divide by 5. So divide both sides by 5. I'm sorry? Yes, this is part B. 5s cancel out. 33 fifths, does that come out to a whole number? No. So you could either do and figure out 33 fifths and round it, or you could leave it as 33 fifths, and then what would you do next? So you have B to the 8th equals 33 fifths. We don't want B to the 8th. We just want B. So what would you do at this point? Not divide by. No. Yes? Say it again. Right, but we don't, square means 2, so really we're taking the 8th root. So I knew you knew what you meant, but yes, we say it taking the 8th root. So you would take the 8th root over here. If you take the 8th root of something that is raised to the 8th power, these are going to cancel out, so you're left with just B equals, and if we take the 8th root, let's see here. For mine, I have to put the 8 in first, but I'm not sure about yours. Let's see, 33 over 5, enter. Did anybody get an answer for that? B is equal to, what'd you get, Kimani? I think that's a little high. Yes. It should be like 1.2660, something like that. So you want to take the 8th root of 33 fifths. So you can either take 33 fifths and get 6.6, and then you could take the 8th root of 6.6, or you can leave it as 33 fifths. Did you happen to do it again to check, Kimani? Did you happen to try it again to see if you got 1.2? No? Okay. So what, if this is B, what does that represent? What do we call that B value? I mean, that's like a major part of our equation, right? So what is B right here? What does that represent? Yes. So when B is equal to 1.2660, that is our growth factor. It is a factor because that is what gets multiplied repeatedly X number of times. So that number is our growth factor. How do I find then the growth rate? The growth rate is part of the growth factor. Does anybody remember how to find that? The growth rate is part of the growth factor. Does anybody remember how to find that? So when you say A equals capital P, that's your initial amount, times 1 plus or minus R to the T power, okay, this right here is your growth factor. And my growth factor happens to be 1.2660. That must be equal to 1 plus R here because that rate is increasing. So to solve for R, subtract by 1, subtract by 1, 1's cancel out. The rate must be 0.266 or 26.6%. So this is the decimal form, and this is the form as a percent. Questions on that? I mean, you are probably going to have to do this within the project that you are doing. So would you be able to figure out an initial amount? It's the part in front of your growth factor, okay? And then if they give you an ending amount and a time period, you should be able to figure out what that growth factor is. And once you have that, you should be able to find the growth rate. Any questions about any of these? I mean, now's the time to ask on this kind of a problem. Okay, so we have one more question. Part C says, hypothetically, if B is equal to 2, so if your growth factor is equal to 2, what would that mean the growth rate is? And how could we put that in common language? So hypothetically, if B is equal to 2, B is equal to 2. Remember, B is your growth factor. If that is equal to 2, what does that mean the growth rate is? Remember, growth rate is part of the growth factor. So take a few minutes, like 3 minutes, give you to 8:46. What is the growth rate and what does that mean in a common language? What does that mean? Schneider, try work on C. Write down your answer. Hypothetically, if b is equal to 2, what does that mean the growth rate is? Try to write that down. All right. It's just, okay, it finally went to 45. I must have, said that right at 3 minutes. So if b is equal to 2, and that is your growth factor, how could I find what my rate is? Devinus, do you know? How could I find what my rate is? Multiply by what? Or why would we do that? Well, what is our growth rate? Or what is our growth factor when we represent it with this exponential equation? What is our growth factor? What part of that equation in the upper left-hand corner is the growth factor? No? Right, it's 1 plus or minus r, and in this case, if the fish are increasing, it's going to have to be 1 plus r, right? So if 2 is equal to that, how would I solve for the rate? Yeah, subtract 1. Subtract 1. So the rate is equal to 1. What does that mean? What is that as a percent? Is that 1%? It's 100%. Yes, you need to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So the rate is equal to 1 or 100%. What does that mean if something is increasing by 100%? It's doubling. Yeah. So in common language, increasing by 100% means it is doubling. Okay. So let's see. The growth. Suppose what does it mean in everyday language? Yes, basically it is doubling. I was trying to see. Oh, weekly percent growth. So it is doubling every week. I forgot to actually look. Oh, it doesn't say it there, but it says it in the book. What is the weekly percent growth rate? Weekly percent. So it is doubling every week, if you want to be precise. Okay? Increasing by 100% means it's doubling every week. All right. Any question about that problem? That's a good problem. It's not overly difficult. It does have you trying to work out some problems and things, but very doable. All right, so the last part, yes, we can now go on to homework number 3, linear or exponential. So that is now available on Canvas. So you have homeworks 1, 2, or 3 that you can work on if you have not worked on the others. Okay? Tomorrow is a block schedule. Remember, tomorrow you have all the odd numbered classes. So you will not see me tomorrow. And on Wednesday, you need to come to second period first thing. So on Wednesday, instead of going to first, go to or come to this class right away. We already talked about this. The biology people have to take some kind of biology test, and they're trying to get it done all in one lump sum. Okay? Any questions for the good of the cause? So Project Hail Mary, I would say wait and watch it on streaming TV. Devil Wears Prada, it's always good to see. Good show. I'm hoping to watch the end of it maybe tonight, although tonight I have barbershop chorus too. So we'll see. And did I tell you guys Wednesday after school tutoring? I will not be here Wednesday after school tutoring. I am here tonight. If you want some extra tutoring or need some extra help, homework, so just Monday this week. Okay? All right.